So Claudia, you're swimming here at 133 per 100, and also exactly the same stroke rate as Anna Corinne on the starter, 46 strokes per minute. You remind me very much of this lady Telly who we saw last week, the channel swimmer. It's smooth, it's controlled. You look like you're really thinking about the hand going into the water. Notice again how the elbow strikes the water before the hand. So potentially be asking you to spear into the water slightly earlier, slightly closer to the head on that right hand side, to make sure we're not into that sunk elbow position as we're going in. Really nice clearance on this side. Again, good head position, showing the armpit to the side, indicating rotation is good, and that's a nice clean hand entry coming in here. Underneath the water. You see good body position. Notice kicking a little bit from the legs. Okay, so quite a relatively strong leg kick there. When I looked at your stroke, I just simply thought it just looks a bit slow. You're not swimming slowly. You're actually swimming one of the quickest within the group, right around about sort of 130s. The whole thing just looks a little bit slow. So, as we've seen with relaxed, yeah. As we've seen with Sharky beforehand, notice how the two hands elbow actually come to a meet at the front. It's actually pausing at the front, so like a catch-up style. What both of you tended to do is actually have that stronger 6-beat kick to push yourself through that. If we could actually remove some of the pause out in front of the head, out in front there, you wouldn't have to be kicking quite so hard. You wouldn't be utilising so much oxygen and energy. You'd have a little bit more rhythm to the stroke. You'd be spending more time on the catch, propelling yourself forward, rather than more time on the glide out in front. Telly was exactly the same last week. She was 45. You're 46. She was 45 strokes per minute. And look, didn't she look graceful last week, Telly? Like even when she's swimming slow like you do here, but it just looked a little bit sort of, almost like it needed to notch up a gear. She actually described herself as a commuter, a swimming commuter, a pedestrian. She described it was really nice. Somebody who's from the English Channel to describe herself like that. And if we look here, if we look at this right arm, this is an interesting one because we saw from the surface that the right arm is entering into the water elbow first. Now, if we look at it from this position here, this is a really useful way of actually utilising this analysis program. If we draw on, let's do that again, that wasn't very good at all. I had one too many whiskies last night. If we draw on that line there, look, try and highlight it, there we go, just increase the... If this yellow line here represents an arc, 180 degrees that the arm goes through to generate catch and propulsion, most people think it makes sense to start the catch from as close to the surface of the water as you possibly can. So if that's 0 degrees and that's 180 down there, to make most use out of that. Unfortunately though, it only becomes effective when the palm of the hand is actually rearward facing. So here, it starts to happen in your stroke around about there. So if we draw on the angle, you're sort of effective from about 28 degrees onwards. Okay, or if we're looking at a depth, probably from a depth of about 18 inches, metric system, 40 centimetres underneath the water there. So what we could focus on getting to do, it's much better on this side, look at that, so much better. But on the right hand side, it's almost like we're overreaching before the hand goes into the water, the elbow sinks down. If you could enter in just a little bit earlier and spear to a slightly deeper position, we could probably get you catching the water more like your left arm does here. So 28 degrees is where you're currently catching with the right arm, 10 degrees is where you're catching with the left arm. If we could mimic the two sides, then that would naturally bring the stroke rate up a little bit because you wouldn't actually be sort of pushing down like that with that arm. So whenever I show somebody that, a lot of kick-tastics actually do this underneath the water. I wouldn't describe your stroke as a kick-tastic, I'd put it as a bit over glide or smooth basically. But a lot of kick-tastics tend to do this, and when I get them to spear a little bit deeper, they don't necessarily like the feeling because they feel like they're losing that first part of the stroke. But as you can see here, that first part of your stroke is not really helping you, it's actually just pushing down. If you'd spear in like this left arm, that's textbook perfect on that left side. If you just copy that with your right, you're doing business. All right. Yeah, absolutely. Which side do you always breathe bilaterally, or you used to breathe to just the left? Okay, so why would what we're seeing here develop on the right arm? To balance or to lift, to lift for the breath. So it's a very classic case of that happening within the stroke. So like I said with Roy, if you have a little go breathing to the other side or doing the 15 100s, 5 on one, 5 on the other, and 5 bilaterally, it'd be interesting to see how that sort of pans out from a speed perspective. But having a little go with the tempo trainers, do like a bit of a test to see where you're at. I think you'd like that. And do you feel like you can do 2 beat leg kick?
I think it's very difficult.
Yeah. Maybe because of the stall at the front.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But I used to be a kick testing.
Oh, you did you? Oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay, yeah. I wouldn't. These days, I wouldn't classify you super like that. It's a little bit more sort of
to get more
from the catch, yeah. And you can see that you're doing that pretty well. Maybe a little bit more bend at the elbow there. I'd actually say the biggest thing is that we are out there just a little bit too long. Just looks a little bit too slow. I'd like to literally just get a little bit more oomph within it and get you working well with that. Okay. Haven't seen anyone last week on the course. One of the coaches had a stroke rate of Mike was 82 strokes per minute, and we worked with him and actually slowed him down a little bit. And we found that his best stroke rate was about 74 strokes per minute. So sometimes swimmers do present with a stroke rate which is too high. He was a classic swinger and I was actually just over revving a little bit too much at the front, but I think you're just under revving a little bit. But if I simply say, here's a beeper, crank it up, if you maintain that really strong kicking within the stroke and don't correct this right arm, it's just going to feel like you're working too hard as well. So it needs a little bit of adjustment on there for that.
Was he kind of slip the water? The consequences of going too quick, slowing him down, is that because he's losing technique?
Yeah. So at the front, a classic swinger who over revs a little bit, and I occasionally do that as well underneath the water. The hand will come in and just try to get hold of the water just a bit too quickly. So it's almost like they're not gaining as much traction. If you go out for a bike ride and you say, okay, 40k time trial, and you're just in a gear which is just slightly too small and you're just revving slightly too quick, some swingers can be a little bit like that. Okay. Equally though, they need to do that. Somebody like Alistair Brownlee is not a big, powerfully built athlete. He hasn't got the force to apply per stroke. He hasn't got particularly big arms or big shoulders. So consequently, he needs to keep the rate up a little bit high. But he catches the water much better than Harry does. Yeah. Okay, Claudia, well done.